What is going on, my fellow geeks?
3 movies with elves and a guy with a white beard.
Not a lot of people accept it as canon.
2022 will be the year of Star Wars.
Well, I have more than just one piece of geek news.
I have been Isaac Hunter.
Which is like high culture, but better.
Hello, fellow geeks, and welcome back to another episode of Raving Geeks, the weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about all things geeky and geek culture, which is like high culture, but better. We are back in season 7 with our second episode of the season. If you're just joining us, welcome to Raving Geeks podcast. If you've been here for a while, welcome back. My name is Hope Goodearl, and I am joined with my co-host who will introduce himself in a second. And if you like this episode, you can check us out on any platform where you find podcasts like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you can check it out at cm-life.com. And on YouTube, just search CM Central Michigan Life Podcasts Raving Geeks. So we are here today to talk about, if you are on YouTube, I got my She-Hulk behind me. But before we start that, we're going to have, both of us are going to answer our question of the week, which is, who is your favorite female hero or villain?
That's a hard one. By the way, I'm Carter Salley, and I'm joined here with Hope, and I'm super excited to talk about some geeky stuff with you. I don't really have a particular favorite because there are a lot of favorite female superheroes, but one that comes to mind is Scarlet Witch. I've always been a huge fan of her and how she uses magic, and I think she was severely underrated until the MCU introduced her into the story. And I always loved her because her magic has just got a really unique sort of proportion to it, and the colors and effects always in the comic books look super, super pretty. And that she's got one of the most unique relationships in the comic books, being married to an android named the Vision. And I always loved the relationship that always went with them, and that she's just a super intriguing character.
Yeah, nice. I also love Wanda. Honestly, I think the show WandaVision made me love her even more, especially because Elizabeth Olsen did such a brilliant job going between both, like, having the accent, not having the accent, Wanda going through the different time periods of TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that I'm actually going to say my favorite female villain is probably going to be Royal Pain from Sky High, if anybody remembers that somewhat old movie. But also, I really love Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn.
Yeah, she's a great character.
Yeah, as she, like, I think Margot Robbie just is able to add a little bit more depth to the character of Harley Quinn, especially like with the new movies coming out that DC has done. And then, like, also after, like, she broke up with Joker, or she called him Mr. J, and like coming back in the Suicide Squad, like, I thought her character was just perfect. So
Yeah, really nice.
all right, so now we always have some geek news to share with y'all. So Carter, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of pieces. Most of them are DC, actually. So my first piece of news is that the president of DC Films, Walter Hamada, has left Warner Brothers and Discovery to Michael Zaslav. So that's already pretty interesting. Walter Hamada was a very controversial figure for Warner Brothers Discovery, was what it's now being called. He was a person who didn't want us to have a Man of Steel 2 for quite a while. But now that he's left, DC Films said that they are continuing with Superman, and they're making a Man of Steel 2 sometime soon, which is a great step in the right direction. I'm very excited about that. Another piece of news that came out is that they are working on a Flash 2, which is incredibly striking to me, given recent events with Ezra Miller and how the Flash movie has been developing. I don't know why they're continuing with the Flash character. I would have stepped away from that character for at least a little bit of time.
I mean, if they're keeping it under wraps that they have recast Ezra Miller to make another Flash movie, then I could understand that. But if they're sticking with Ezra Miller, especially with their whole legal issues and other joyous events,
Yes.
like
Well, they can't actually, because Ezra Miller is facing 29 years in prison right now. So I
yeah,
think they're going to have to recast.
well,
Who would you want as Flash?
I have seen some fan castings, both for Grant Gustin, just getting him to continue playing Flash. But I've seen Dylan O'Brien, and I think Dylan O'Brien would be a really interesting choice.
I really want Dylan O'Brien. I think he'd be a very great choice for Barry Allen.
Yeah.
I think he played Percy Jackson, if I'm correct.
Nope, that was Logan Lerman.
Oh, Logan Lerman. Yeah.
No, Dylan O'Brien was in the Teen Wolf TV series.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Along with a few other movies.
That's right. But I think he'd be a great casting choice for Flash. But yeah, if they do Grant Gustin, good for him. I don't really want that to happen. I preferably go with an unknown actor and just completely start from scratch. But hey, whatever they choose, they choose. And other news is that the Batman 2 is officially happening. The Batman is finally confirmed to get a sequel, and that other DC villains like Joker are getting their own movies, and a couple of standouts were Scarecrow and Professor Pig. I'm really happy for Scarecrow getting his own film because he is my favorite DC supervillain of all time. And Professor Pig, I think, could be really interesting if they go with the Hannibal Lecter route, because I don't know how they're going to do a Professor Pig movie, because he's a very violent character. And if you ever watched Gotham and the whole meat pie scene, he'll get under your skin. Yeah. So I do want those films to happen. I do prefer if they went with the Arkham TV show route that they were going to do initially. I think that would be better fit. And I love anthology series, as per last week we talked about Tales from the Crypt. I love the anthology format. I think it would fit better, but judging by Joker, and if they keep that good momentum going, I'll have no complaints. Just make a good movie. And I think that's it for my news, actually. Oh yeah, and Black Adam's coming out this Friday. So
yes, it is.
Everybody go see Black Adam. Please support this movie so we can have a good start to a new DC universe. We really need it. Really,
also, hopefully, with the new CEO person in charge, like maybe they can turn some things around for.
Well, I have my own opinions about him, but that's like a completely different story, which I will not waste our time with. But I have a few opinions on David Zaslav, which I will reserve for a different time.
All right. So in other geek news, if I'm remembering correctly, The Boys is part of DC, but I could be very wrong, so don't quote me on that. But The Boys season 2 is going to be debuting 2 new soups. We're going to get Firecracker and Sage. Firecracker is going to be played by Valerie Curry, and Sage is going to be played by Susan Hayward. And while little is known about either character at this stage, their respective code names, along with the tweet's text, indicate that Sage is a clairvoyant, while Firecracker's powers are pyrokinetic in nature. So I'm super excited to see 2 new female soups on The Boys, especially considering everything that has been happening within the seasons. And I won't try and spoil anything for those of you that are still catching up. And so also moving into Marvel real quick is Marvel Zombies TV show is only going to be 4 episodes long, And while most of the other Marvel shows have been about 6 episodes to 9 episodes, Marvel Zombies is only going to be 4 episodes, but it's also going to be rated R.
I heard about that. Like, I love that it's going to be rated R. I think we do need more adult animation. I think that's a great thing for the adult community and the animation community. I don't know why they cut it down to 4 episodes though, because
I think part of it's probably special effects and how much money that would cost, and so how much money they willing to pour into a more horror, fantasy, science fiction-y TV show that's also rated R. Like,
no, see, like usually special effects don't really have anything to do with the amount of length of the episodes typically go for, the amount of seasons. It's usually that I'm concerned that they don't have enough story to tell, and it's just going to be a very lackluster show. And I don't want that to happen, because I hope that for Marvel Zombies, they don't strict too close to the MCU. With Marvel Zombies, you have all these different characters that you can use in animation that you don't have to establish in the MCU. But I'm afraid that they're going to stick to the MCU. And since the MCU's Marvel Zombies, thanks to What If TV show, established that not very many of the heroes are alive, I feel like they've kind of put themselves in a corner by setting it in the MCU. That's my only concern with it.
I mean, it'll also depend on like fans' reactions to it being rated R, and like also if it's more about like the gore and guts too, then are fans going to react well to that, or is it because of like swearing that's going to be happening like in Deadpool? But that one I'm actually excited for, even though I didn't fully watch What If. But yeah, it'll be interesting to say nonetheless. It'll be an experience for both Marvel fans and Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also within Marvel Studios, for the Disney Plus series Ironheart, it is rumored that Sacha Baron Cohen will be playing Mephisto. And while he has been in other things, for me, Sacha Baron Cohen will always be the innkeeper in the Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe version of Les Mis. He did that so well, especially with Helena Bonham Carter as his wife.
Yes.
And then also, Harrison Ford has been cast as Thunderbolt Ross for Captain America: New World Order.
I saw that. I don't know how to feel about that, honestly. We can't replace Chadwick Boseman, but we can replace William Hurt. I don't know about that. You know, I know that Chadwick Boseman did a whole thing for an entire community. I don't know about that though, and especially with Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford has been known to hate anything Star Wars, Marvel, big budget projects kind of thing, and I don't know why he decided to take this role. I actually saw this really funny meme on Twitter saying that Marvel's got Harrison Ford and his family at gunpoint for this movie, which I think is really funny because it's so out of character for Harrison Ford to take a role like this. I would have preferred I forgot his name now, but Sam Elliott. I would have preferred Sam Elliott to take the role because of his giant mustache, and he just seems to fit the role more for Everett Ross. Like, he can do some intimidating roles. I don't know. I'll see when it happens if Harrison Ford's good in the role. I think he's gonna look super goofy, all red and muscular. That's gonna be a sight to see. And Sacha Baron Cohen, I think, will crush it as Mephisto. I mostly know him as Borat, so I've seen a lot of the funnier side of him, but Mephisto's got like a sixth sense of humor to him, so I think Sacha can pull that off pretty well.
Yeah. Going on your Star Wars thread, Mark Hamill actually posted about this on his Instagram as well, that a California bakery made a Han Solo frozen in carbonite out of bread.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a 6-foot replica of this. And so Mark Hamill, of course, was like, Pan Solo, because it's Mark Hamill, so what are you gonna do? And then in the world of Percy Jackson, we have a ton of new news coming out of Rick Riordan and the Percy Jackson series. So first off, we have 3 new actors that were cast for various roles. We have Adam Copeland as Ares, who was on WWE and is a pro wrestler. Whether he's retired or not, he still is a pro wrestler. So they're really going to have this tiny little kid take on a pro wrestler as Ares. Suzanne Cryer is Echidna. And then Jessica Parker Kennedy is Medusa. And I think that she is going to absolutely slay at that role.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rick Riordan also announced a new trio book that's going to be a standalone book about Annabeth, Percy Jackson, and Grover. It's called Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Chalice of the Gods. And it is not coming out until next September, almost October. So September 26th, 2023 is when it's coming out. And it will be written as more of like a middle school level, even though the novel itself is unfolding during Percy's senior year of alternative high school in New York. But it's also after the Heroes of Olympus, but before the Trials of Apollo. And so this time around, Percy is not worried about saving the world. He has a much harder quest getting into college. New Rome University requires recommendation letters from 3 gods, which means, yep, you guessed it, Percy has to run quests to get the letters. That sound you hear is Percy screaming into his pillow in frustration. So his first quest is the cupbearer of the gods. Ganymede is missing his chalice. Not only is this embarrassing, but it's a potential disaster since any mortal who happens to drink from the cup will gain immortality. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover have to find the chalice and return it to Ganymede before anyone realizes he lost it. So yeah, I am super excited for all of that. And then finally, my last piece of news, if any of y'all are fans of A Christmas Story, really old movie, got turned into a play for stage. I had to wear a stupid pink bunny costume. I was not happy about it. I understand how Ralphie feels about that one. There is finally a sequel coming, and it is called A Christmas Story Christmas. And it's going to come out on HBO Max on November 17th. The full trailer is coming soon. It will be rated PG. So Peter Billingsley is coming back as Ralphie Parker. You have Aaron Hayes playing Sandy Parker. And then Zach Ward is back as Scott Farkus, but he's now Officer Scott Farkus. And you also have Scott Schwartz coming back as Flick. R.D. Robb coming back as Schwartz. And then the plot line, according to IMDb, is it follows Ralphie, now an adult, who returns to the house on Cleveland Street to give his kids a magical Christmas like the one he had as a child, reconnecting with childhood friends and reconciling the passing of his old man. So they show...
I saw that. I saw it and I'm like, it's probably a cash grab, but I'll still watch it. My only complaint is that the title's really dumb. Why didn't they just call it Another Christmas Story?
Because I mean,
A Christmas Story Christmas. It doesn't just roll off the tongue, and it would have been so clever to just call it Another Christmas Story. That way, people know it's a sequel to the original movie, but it's not doing whatever that title did.
I mean, it's a Christmas story, and I apologize to anybody who likes this movie, but I think it's ridiculously stupid. So the fact that the title for the sequel is also kind of ridiculously stupid, kind of fits. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to heavily disagree with you on the whole movie being stupid. See, my dad raised me on that movie, so I know that movie from head to toe. So it's a Christmas classic in our house, so we watch it every year. So I'll still be watching it.
Yeah. Like I said, November 17th. So, speaking of things that came out, are coming out, She-Hulk has officially aired the season finale. It came out when we're recording this on Wednesday, October 19th, last week, Thursday. It wrapped up the 9-episode series. We had a couple, I'll call them interesting moments within the series finale, but I think it also fit in with the show and how they set it up completely. So just to start off our conversation here, Carter, what did you think of the series finale of She-Hulk? Did you have any like comparisons to past Marvel show season finales, or what was the general impression of it?
I noticed that this show's been getting a whole lot of unreasonable hate, and I keep going back to this show, and I look back at it, and I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. It isn't as great as like shows like Moon Knight or Loki, but it's not the roughest I've seen the MCU. Um, are we allowed to go into full spoilers here since we gave it a week?
Yeah, I will say that if you have not watched the season finale, you will be getting spoilers in this episode, and we'll make sure to put that in our description of this episode as well.
Okay, good. I'd like to start off the conversation that I feel like this show's kind of wasted potential because I feel like this is just testing for Deadpool. I know that She-Hulk was self-aware in the comics, but that whole series finale, like I liked it, and I thought the Kevin joke was cute, and I gotta admit, I thought that was funny that I know that Kevin Feige wrote that in just as like his self-expression to like the Marvel fans, like, hey, I'm trying here. I'm not a robot, even though you might think I am. It felt very Deadpool to me. It's definitely something Deadpool would do, and I know that She-Hulk does do it in the comic books. There's this very specific issue where she actually tears open the comic page that she's on, and she's like telling the writers, "What are you doing with my story?" And I think that's what they are adapting here. But I couldn't help but feel like I know this is just testing for Deadpool, but I would have liked to have just seen that finale when all the Hulks went at it, because it's been a while since we've seen like an all-out Hulk fight. Just my
See,
opinion.
and I am going to respectfully disagree with you on this. And people can take our disagreement however they want. But I honestly think that, like, for me, Deadpool is more like self-aware for himself, but also self-aware enough to mess with the other characters in a way that benefits him, or like seems funny to him. Whereas She-Hulk was more like, this doesn't make sense for where you have this story going. Let's get it back on track. And like taking control of her own narrative, which was part of what the entire series was about too, was her taking control of her narrative, being a Hulk, being She-Hulk, a name that she did not get to choose for herself, that eventually came to like it enough that she fought for it in court. And I think if they had let it go on with the fourth wall break of her going and meeting robot Kevin, like when she was sitting on the floor and like talking about, okay, well, we can do this and this and this for all these different characters, I think that would have made it more like Deadpool. But because they kept it short and sweet and went, okay, you're right, let's follow the storylines we had started, it was more She-Hulk fourth wall breaks and intervention than Deadpool to me. And I'm honestly also happy that they didn't bring a Hulk fight into it, because I think it needs to be saved for when they fully explain how Hulk has a son, and then when Thunderbolt Ross becomes the Red Hulk, I think that's when they'll be able to create that big Hulk fighting moments better, and it'll make more sense than it would in the series finale of something that was like, hey, she just lost everything and, is now figuring out who screwed her over and like how she can fix it on her own and be the badass boss woman that she is.
Right. And I guess like my biggest complaint with this show is that there's a conflicting there is conflicting tone throughout the entire show, and I felt like the show didn't really know what it wanted to be. What I wanted from this show was Marvel lawyer drama, and I love the stuff with Matt Murdock. I love when she was actually taking on cases, and I didn't really love the episodes that were just about her going to go find a dress. That was a little ridiculous to me, and I think her going to the wedding was a little bit ridiculous. And I'm like, whoa, we're kind of getting away from what She-Hulk is, and I felt like um Jennifer's character in general, I don't think she grew it as much as I wanted her to be. When she was not She-Hulk, it never really seemed like that, like Jennifer really knew what to do with herself, and that She-Hulk was kind of like her entire thing. And at the end of the episode, she stays as She-Hulk. I think it would have been more powerful at the end of the episode if it was just her as Jennifer Walters. And the character didn't really grow as much as I wanted her to grow for me.
Well, I think the other aspect you have to think about is they were doing this in 9 episodes versus a whole movie. And whenever you have a TV show versus a movie, like even the Percy Jackson series, which I know is going to be phenomenal, and I know how hard Rick Riordan is working with the studios to make sure that it's accurate, you're not going to have the same budget allotted to a TV show that you would a movie, because a movie you're going to get ticket sales and advertising sales and merchandise sales and whatever contract you make with like different movie theaters companies. Whereas a TV show, especially on Disney Plus, where there's not commercials that you can get money back from, you're only getting the money from if they have it where you get it for how many views or how many times it's streamed and the fact of your subscription fees. And so even though it's a Marvel itself is this huge thing and we're so used to big powerful moments, like it's still going to be very much condensed more than it would be in a movie. I think if we had a movie, they would have been able to stretch out some things a little bit more. But I mean, for me, the show felt like it was more about her accepting, kind of like Spider-Man, where he has to accept that, hey, I have these powers and I really should use them for good. And it's her finally being okay with being a Hulk and knowing that she is different now. And people are going to view her differently, but it's how she reacts to that that matters more than, how everybody else is reacting to her. And I think that was really evident for her when she hulked out at the award ceremony. And also, like when she saw the fear in everybody's eyes and then had the guns trained on her, even though they wouldn't do anything. So I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
How did they get her in jail? Did she just go willingly, I guess?
I think so, because she realized the fear that she caused by hulking out like Bruce had warned her about. But because she had never felt that rage before, like that amount of rage, let me rephrase that. She's never felt that amount of rage while being a Hulk. Because as a female, I'm sure that she felt that type of rage. Any other time, she just did not have the Hulk whatever that made everything heightened and her that much scarier to people when she got angry. Um, so I think for her, she went willingly because she was like, "Yep, I screwed up. Let's. I messed a bunch of things up." And also, her being a lawyer, like I like that throughout the show, they kept her very consistent on that she followed the law. She trusted the legal system. She trusted her coworkers to help her through, and she wanted to do things in a legal way versus just like Avengers. Let's go blow up some shit because we need to, or because hey, we're fighting this thing and we need to blow up. Yeah, whatever. Like she was like, no, there's other options for this,
Yeah,
which I really liked throughout the show.
I did too, and I wish that there were more of those. I wish that there were more of those moments, and I think that was really what made She-Hulk a great character, that she didn't need to go into a big battle with fisticuffs a pumping. She knew how to use what she learned in law school and applied her strengths to her own situation. Like, I loved it when she went up against Matt Murdock in the whole Frogman. I love that entire episode, not just because Matt Murdock is in it, but just because of the whole lawyer system that is that is all played out, and the whole lawyer drama was actually really, really interesting. And if that was just the episode without going into like all the action scenes with Daredevil, which were awesome, I'm not complaining about that. I'm so glad we got that and their chemistry together. But if the whole episode was just them in the courtroom, I would have been completely satisfied and happy because of how interesting that dynamic was.
Yeah, and I really liked how genuine the reactions were that she had between like not only being like, I'm personally invested in this because the defendant is someone that like I know and like I have a relationship with, but also, wait, there's this lawyer and he just flew in from New York. Why? What? And then realizing that, oh yeah, my client can still screw me over, even though he's this, his dad is the biggest client or one of the biggest clients in my law firm. Like, I really shouldn't trust everything that he says because, there could be other reasons. And yeah, I thought that like that whole part, because having watched other lawyer dramas, like that has happened before because the client's not always going to tell you everything because they want you to be on their side and just win on what they tell you versus the actual truth. Like,
yeah, with that, what was your favorite episode from the season?
I honestly loved the episode that she had to spend at Emil Blonsky's retreat area without her phone, and then she had to reconnect with the guy that tried to get her blood in one of the first episodes, and then just like the introduction of these little Marvel characters that not everybody's gonna know, because if you've never read the comics or you've never read their specific comics, you're not gonna know who they are necessarily. But like, it made the superhero business more human, even though like they weren't necessarily human, but it was like, no, you can still be a hero but have all these human issues, and I really like that.
Yeah.
What about you?
My favorite episode besides the Matt Murdock episode was actually the pilot episode where she was just training with Bruce Banner on how to be a Hulk, and I thought that whole entire situation was really entertaining. And I love the whole backstory with Bruce Banner building a bar with Tony Stark before he died, and then he kept the helmet that Tony did the snap in as like a little memento, and the little insignias that they made in the bar. And I thought that was just like really wholesome, and it really built up Bruce's character, because besides Hawkeye, I think Bruce Banner is actually the least developed character in the MCU, and he's a main Avenger, probably because we know him as like the big green mean Hulk. and Bruce Banner never really got any time to shine. But in this episode with Smart Hulk, and I know a lot of people aren't really a fan of Smart Hulk because they say they've dumbed down Hulk. I thought it was actually really humanizing for him, for both of their characters.
So I also really liked that episode. I'm gonna be honest, I thought that the Tony Stark Iron Man helmet was from when Tony was in space and did like the whole recording for everybody, like the diary entries and stuff. And I did not make the connection that it was when he did the whole snap thing and got
Yeah,
the panel.
because Pepper Potts and Morgan had that recording based off of Endgame. You know, I wouldn't think
Okay.
that Pepper and Morgan would give that to Bruce, even though that Bruce was like Tony's best friend. I don't think that family memento they would be so keen on giving that away.
I mean, the other thing is Tony Stark, and while he didn't have as many suits as he did in Iron Man 3, I think, yeah, 3.
Yeah, it's 3.
But I still think because it's Tony Stark, he would have been tinkering around with something, especially after being in space. So it would not surprise me if Tony Stark had recorded a few different messages to different people on various helmets. But it does make more sense that it was the one with the snap, because Smart Hulk was also the one that snapped and got everybody back to begin with. So
Right.
he would have that connection to Tony of like, you know, we both did the snap, like, but I regret, or like, I have these mixed emotions because I'm still alive because of snapping while being the Hulk. Meanwhile, you're dead and you have this family that you left behind. So I definitely would like to see, but I don't think we're gonna get it at any point ever. Like if Bruce had, like when you were talking about like developing Bruce Banner and Hulk just a little bit more, I think it would be really interesting to see like him having to process through all of that and being reminded that he is still alive, even though people he cared most about are dead, like Tony and Natasha, especially with Hulk having a son and him having told Natasha that he can't have kids. Like, you know, and all of a sudden he's like, oh shit, I got a kid. So like, I think it would be really interesting to deep dive, not fully deep dive, but like do some sort of dive into like all of the mixed emotions that Bruce is feeling with all of that.
Yeah. What was your least favorite episode of the season?
I really don't know if I have a least favorite or not. I will say that like I found it ironic, but also like really annoying that like the very first episode was Bruce not only Hulk-splaining, but then mansplaining, and then Jen having to be like, hello, I'm obviously different than you because I'm still Jen, as well as then going, I'm not going to have the same emotions as you because as a female, I have to deal with this stuff on a regular basis. So I already know how to control my emotions better than you, a male who's never had to deal with these kinds of things. Not to say that males don't endure, you know, various things.
If I could have a take on that whole situation, to Hulk's credit, he's never really had to like dissect another Hulk. And actually in the comic books, She-Hulk does develop another personality, just like Bruce Banner. So I thought that was really interesting that they didn't really go into that, because She-Hulk does have a savage side to her, and it's called Savage She-Hulk. And she's really badass.
I think based on the season finale, I'm like having to go back and make sure I'm talking about the right episodes because they all start blending together. When she rages out, when she hulks out, that's probably when the alternate personality for her Hulk comes out.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's gonna come out until they have the Hulk movies, or
Yeah.
whichever like big combination of Hulk movies they decide to do.
Or season 2 of Hulk,
Yeah.
She-Hulk, because Savage She-Hulk is like this gray undertone and like these green stripes, and then in the comics she has like an ongoing battle in her mind where it's Jennifer Walters against her Hulk personality, and it's in a courtroom. So
Okay.
she's doing a trial on herself, and I thought that's such a cool concept. That would be so cool to see in live action. And plus, then we would have a Savage She-Hulk fight versus the Avengers, or against Hulk or Abomination. I'm like, that would have been such a cool concept to see.
I think part of going back to fleshing out Bruce Banner and Hulk is the Hulk movies came out before the MCU truly became the MCU.
Mhm.
Like the Incredible Hulk was with, I can't remember his name, but a different
Edward
actor.
Norton.
Yeah, Edward Norton, who played Bruce Banner and Hulk. And then, I mean, you had RDJ come in at the end scene credit, and like, you know, say, oh, so I hear you have a problem, or whatever the line was.
Mhm.
But I don't think that they fully fleshed that out because they did have to switch actors.
Yeah, and
So then,
Incredible Hulk bombed really, really bad.
yeah, and then you also have how is this Hulk going to be is this Hulk going to be different from the Incredible Hulk? And so I think now that they have established Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner and Hulk, that they are going to be able to flesh him out just a little bit more.
Mhm.
Plus, seeing people actually liking Hulk and Bruce Banner. You know, he's not just the angry green guy who smashes things like and only knows a few phrases. It's, as we got in Infinity War, that like he was like, no, I'm not doing any more fighting, I just want to break. And Bruce having to come to terms with Hulk is his own entity, even though they share a body. Right. Or as they say in Supernatural, meat suit, because they do technically have two different bodies, but like, but I also, so my question is, if it was possible, because She-Hulk was set in California.
Yeah, I think so.
And Daredevil is set in New York. Would you ever want to see like a mini series or something where Matt Murdock and Jennifer Walters are just like battling it out legally, whether it's like fake scenarios like what lots of people do for law school, or like doing like a Elle Woods type of like Supreme Court type prosecution and like court case, where they have to battle it out against each other, and do that like a few different cases, but then them going back and being like, okay, but like we've got all these quips against each other, like there's this big chemistry. Oh, by the way, my dad still wants to talk about having kids, even though we've only gone on like no dates and just have slept together. Would you want to see that type of show?
It's conflicting for me because one, I love Matt Murdock and Jennifer Walters together, but knowing that they're in the same kind of business together and that they will eventually run head to head into each other again. I'm not sure because I kind of want them as like the happy couple together, but I kind of also want to see them go head to head in court because it's two brilliant minds hashing out a disagreement, and that whole episode is my favorite episode because of how interesting that concept is. So it's a 50-50 bag for me. It would just depend on who's writing the series, who's directing it, and if there's an end goal. Because I don't want to just see the series with them going at it back and forth, and the big revelation of the series is that they break up. Oh wow, how obvious, because they live in completely two different parts of the country. Real interesting. I think if we saw that series, we'd already know what the end game of it would be. That's my only fear with it.
But I feel like I think that Jennifer Walters likes Matt Murdock more because he challenges her not only like her ability as a lawyer, but like her brain is challenged too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that whole intelligence against intelligence, but it's not just like the book intelligence, it's the like street smart savvy intelligence as well, to be able to be like, hang on, let's, rewind. And like their quips about when they went into the building, and she's like, I'm not waiting 30 minutes up here on this roof for you to decide to finally take down all these bad guys in stealth mode. And he's like,
yeah, I thought that was really funny.
well, and then he goes, you need to recheck your math there, because that's not how that ends up. But that was just like a constant between the two of them. So I honestly think that it wouldn't be that they break up. That they would be the couple that would be able to do the long distance, because it's not like they are Thor and Jane. I haven't seen Thor Love and Thunder yet, so don't come at me for that.
Okay.
But like where they're on two different worlds that literally need a portal to get to each other, because it's also time-space continuum. And Earth doesn't have the technology of Star Trek yet, where like they can just zoom anywhere they want. But so I think that they would be able to make it work. I think it would just be like, it would be the fun relationship for a while, especially because they are both superheroes. So then they both understand that they have other responsibilities, and they wouldn't be able to truly come together until some big catalyst event that happens that requires them to be in the same place for a long period of time.
Right.
So I think that would be more, if they did a type of show between Matt Murdock and Jennifer Walters, it would be more like, them meeting up every few months because he's taking a pro bono case, or her client at the law firm is this like multimillionaire, but they can't leave New York, so she's got to fly out to New York to Hell's Kitchen, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
More than like, yes, we're in a serious relationship together. That's not as feasible, but just
right.
professions outside of being human and lawyers. So, if trying to think of like how to phrase this, if the show had one more episode that they were able to stretch the series out, we're not adding anything after the series finale, we're just adding a 10th episode so that we could have stretched something else out within the series. If we had a 10th episode, what moment during the other 9 episodes would you have liked to dive deeper into?
I think I'd liked a little bit more of a dive on what was the evil billionaire's name? Was it Todd, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would like to know just why did you steal She-Hulk's blood and do that whole thing, the whole big mystery for the series? I would have just liked why did you do that? Because when he revealed that, I'm like, okay, that's like the plot of every other Hulk comic book. Why did you do that? And he's like, just because I could. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I get it. Male privilege and stuff like that. I get it. Would have just like I would have hoped it was like to raise an army of super Hulks, or something a little bit more comic booky than just male privilege. A little bit more of an explanation on that one. How about you?
And I suddenly can't remember her name, but the superhero villain anti-hero,
Oh, Titania.
Titania, thank you. I would have liked to expand that relationship more, because I feel like there were a lot of parts missing, or like pieces missing that
Yeah, like
made
how did she get her powers? What happened?
not so much that as much as like, okay, so Jen Walters defeated you in a courtroom when you were trying to attack people. That's gonna make you hate her, you're making her your nemesis now. Like, I feel like there was something else in there that we didn't get. And so I think that would be interesting, because then, Titania also takes the She-Hulk name. She goes to the wedding, and then, it's just like, oh, well, I don't want to fight you as Jennifer Walters because this is just pathetic. Like, I'm like, okay, so you were originally like a social media star. Now you have powers. Like, there was just something that wasn't fully connecting.
It was very jumbled. Like in the comics that She-Hulk and Titania, they were best friends until She-Hulk got her powers, and then Titania stole She-Hulk's blood, got powers of her own, and that's how they became rivals, because they were friends, always wanting to one up each other. And I'm like, that would have been great for this show. And I was like, why was that not adapted at all? Titania was a character I just did not remember until you mentioned her. And like, what's the actress's name? Like Jamil Jamal, something like that. Great actress. I loved her in The Good Place. She was so wasted in this show. I mean, her character was so forgettable.
Well, and like, I don't know that forgettable as much as just like, you could just kind of put a veil over her, because she wasn't fully necessary for the show. Like, okay, the first time that she showed up was kind of necessary, because then that made Jen Walters actually become She-Hulk for the first time and be like, oh yeah, I gotta use my powers for good and to stop this bad thing from happening. But other than that, it was just kind of like she was a nuisance more than anything else. And so I think if they had expanded the relationship between them to state whether they had a prior relationship, like knew each other in high school or whatever, or said, oh, so, all of a sudden Titania's followers are jumping over to this She-Hulk thing, even though She-Hulk doesn't have a social media account. Jen Walters might, but all these fan accounts suddenly popping up for She-Hulk, which takes there was just something that I was like, you skipped this. I don't know what this is, but you skipped it. And that was important. And like, I think the other thing that I didn't like was the fact that, what's his name that you said?
Todd?
Yeah, Todd. That he was in charge, or that he was the brains behind Intelligentsia. Because like, he was the creepy guy that was obsessed with She-Hulk for the date, but also so were most of the other guys, not necessarily to the scientific level that Todd was. But it was like, he didn't have the brains to form Intelligentsia and to try and get her blood. So to me, I'm like, we're missing something else right there. And you're just using him as a scapegoat because you need to tie it up already, because you brought him back and you're like, oh shit, what do we do with him now? So like, I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on some things. but I also feel like they did a lot of other things really well for the show. And I mean, for TV shows, you're always going to drop the ball on things. And I mean, Marvel movies themselves have dropped the ball on things before too. So it's just part of like the industry of writing and creating in TV and film. That unfortunately they go, you have a time limit, and this is how much time you have. So even though you have this much to say, you have to put it in this much time.
Right.
Which is why, of course, everybody hates when books get adapted to movies, because you got this long ass book and it's being put in 2 hours. Is there anything else that you would like to add about our lovely show? Where
No.
you think that she's going to pop up next, or where you hope she's going to pop up next?
She's already been confirmed to pop up in Captain America 4. So
That's true.
That's cool. Excited for her to. I thought Tatiana Maslany was great as She-Hulk. The entire cast was great, and there was no really bad acting. If they make a season 2, I'll be watching.
Okay. Would you want season 2 to be longer?
No, 9 episodes is the perfect amount, I think. Maybe longer episodes. Instead of 30 minutes, go to like 45.
That's fair. Other thing, and this was in the other Marvel series too, the use of the end credit scenes, or lack thereof, because Marvel has become known for their end credit scenes where you sit there in the movie theater and see people leaving at the first part of the end credits, and you're like, what are you doing? We still got stuff to see. What? And then even the people who leave after the first clip, they're like,
yeah, we got one more.
There's 2. Where are you going? But Marvel has been making it like some episodes have them, not all of them. Maybe one has 2 end credit things.
Oh yeah, they blatantly lied in an interview, by the way. They said She-Hulk was going to every episode was going to have an end credit scene, which first half did, second half didn't, and that was a blatant lie, and I was kind of pissed about that.
I feel like it would have been better if they had done like what they did with Falcon and Winter Soldier, where the end credits were in the second half of the season versus the first. Because you're like, oh yeah, by the way, this is setting up the next episode, versus like, here's the information that we couldn't put in. Like, what?
Right.
So do you think Marvel is feeling the pressure of having to always have at least one end credit scene? Or do you think that for their TV shows, they're like, do we need it?
It's a funny thing what's going on with Marvel right now. I bet Kevin Feige, I feel sorry for the entire team at Marvel right now, because Marvel's being judged extremely harshly about the content that they are being put out at this moment. And I just think it's because people aren't patient and they don't know when to wait. I can still find the good in anything Marvel puts out because I love their source material so much. I mean, it literally shaped my life, quite literally. That and Star Wars quite literally shaped what I am today. And I couldn't thank them enough. And I think it's because that people are starting to get picky after how great Marvel has been on a track record. And I think Marvel needs to acknowledge what their audience wants. And I think us as the audience need to acknowledge what Marvel wants. There has to be a good balance. And I think with She-Hulk, it's starting to show, because those Matt Murdock episodes were really, really good. And that was a good sense of balance right there. They were telling a story that they wanted to tell, and Marvel fans were still getting fan service that they wanted to see. And Werewolf by Night came out, and that was freaking amazing. I think that's my favorite thing they put on Disney Plus right now, and that was like 15 minutes or something like that. But nobody's watching it right now, which blows my mind. And people have been clamoring for something different from Marvel. Marvel puts out something different and people don't watch it. And it really rubs me the wrong way that people ask for something and then they're like a bratty toddler where they're like, no, I didn't want this kind of different. I wanted this kind of different. And it really rubs me the wrong way. So I can't really speak on how Marvel is doing because I'm loving what they're doing so far. I loved Moon Knight. I loved Loki. I loved Falcon and Winter Soldier. I loved Hawkeye, even though some people didn't like those series. I adored Werewolf by Night, and I pray to God that they continue with those characters. And Black Panther, Wakanda Forever looks fantastic. So does Ant-Man 3 for what we've seen. And we know after D23, they have a plan. They know what they're doing. It's just they got to find the right people to do those things. So I think my advice for people who are feeling anxious or even angry at Marvel at this point, I would say be patient, strap in. It's going to be a good couple of years. And, the good things come to people for those who wait. That's what I like to say.
I think the other point is that Marvel spoiled us with phase 3 and 4. Because we got those big action movies, the big screen fight scenes and, CGI and all of that. And we got all of these heroes together. And what we're in right now, while we're technically phase 5, is we're back to essentially phase 1, where we have to learn all of these characters that are going to be in our big action movies and our big fight sequences. But we have to know who they are first before we can fully get into that. And while with the Avengers, we didn't fully know Black Widow, Hulk, or Hawkeye, we still got set up from Iron Man and Thor and then Captain America. We still had the introductions to the characters. And then of course having the Shield series in between too. I feel like people have seriously forgotten because Marvel spoiled us so much.
Yeah.
That they're like, well, we just want this. Okay, but if you get that, you're going to be mad that you don't know the context. So sit down, strap in, eat your popcorn, and be quiet.
I 100% agree with you. And I think people aren't used to going back to the phase 1 mentality. And I will say, I do have one controversial opinion. I do think Marvel missed an opportunity to end Marvel's MCU where Endgame left off. If they rebooted everything from the start, because they have all their IP back. They have X-Men, they have Fantastic Four, they pretty much have Spider-Man under their boot right now. It's pretty fair to say. If they rebooted everything, I would have also been totally fine with that. I think it would have been interesting to go back. I mean, we would have been starting from phase 1 technically from any point. I mean, we ended a huge story point, and it had trouble crescendoing into the new phase, I noticed, because COVID happened. COVID was a big thing that happened and kind of screwed up everything.
Yep.
But if they chose to reboot everything, I wouldn't have been opposed to it.
I mean, I think they're trying to do it in a way that makes sense. Because I think now that they have done Multiverse of Madness, where they had John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, and you had Sir Patrick Stewart back as Professor X, that they are now able to say, well, we brought them in, we said that they exist, but here's how we're going to do it. And as I told my dad, every time I say, this is how they're going to bring in the X-Men, they don't bring in the X-Men. But I think with Miss Marvel, I think this is how they're going to bring in the X-Men, especially with saying that Kamala is essentially a mutant. That, yeah, she has this family history, but there is something also different about her from her rest of her family. So I think Kevin Feige knows what he's doing. I trust him more than I trust Warner Brothers, especially with a lot of things that have happened in the past few years.
Yes.
But I trust Kevin Feige. So, as always on Raving Geeks, we like to end our podcast episodes with some recommendations, whether it is books, movies, TV shows, anything geeky. So, Carter, what have you got for us today?
I am begging all of our listeners and viewers to please go see Black Adam. Please, DC needs a win, whether it's good or bad. We just needed to make money just to get Man of Steel 2 off the ground. I am begging everyone to go see that movie, whether it is good or bad. Please just go see that movie. I will most likely be attending opening day with my friends and brother if plans go through solidly. And the other recommendation that I have is actually a Netflix adaptation of a Stephen King story called Mr. Harrigan's Phone. I watched this movie a couple days ago and over Netflix, and I watched it over our fall break. And I was like, oh, this seems like a good movie. It was on my list of stuff to watch, and I watched it. And I can honestly say I was blown away. I think it's Netflix's best Stephen King adaptation that they've done. And I think all of the Netflix Stephen King adaptations are incredibly slept on, and I highly encourage every single one of all of our listeners and viewers to go check those out because they are great, great stories and great cinematography. And Mike Flanagan, who has been known for Hill House, Bly Manor, and all those great Netflix stories everybody loves so much, has done one of those called Gerald's Game. It's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend you all go see those.
Okay. Well, I'm going to recommend, if you are on Paramount Plus, you can watch it. It's also a CBS show. It is called East New York, and it is a cop show, cop drama, but I really like how they're setting it up so far because it's showcasing the police officers that really want to make the difference and are struggling against the system that has said for so long, no, this is how we do it. And they're like, but we need to change because that's the only way things are going to get better. And I think that one, it's really good. It's only got 3 episodes so far. It's in the inaugural season. I'm really hoping that it gets renewed. CBS, you haven't let me down fully for most of my shows, so please don't let me down with this one. The other one I want to recommend is also on Paramount Plus, and for this season was strictly on Paramount Plus. But season 1 was originally aired on CBS, and then COVID screwed a lot of things up, including filming. But it's called Blood and Treasure. And if you like history things, like the first season was about Antony and Cleopatra, and like finding the sarcophaguses and sarcophagi. I don't remember which one that is.
I think it's sarcophaguses.
Yeah, I think so too. I know there's a reasoning, and it's based on which route it is, which little like language tree it comes down. Do I remember it? No. Did I get taught it like 2 times? Kind of. But this season 2 is about the soul of Genghis Khan. And it is so good. There's so much history. And yeah, it's really good. I'm really hoping that they have a season 3. They could just make it a Paramount Plus series, and I would be totally okay with that. But of course, it also depends on like Matt Barr, because he's also part of Walker Independence now. So it's still that, which is a spinoff of the Walker series with Jared Padalecki. But yeah, those are my 2 recommendations. If you guys have any questions for us, like you have a question of the week you want us to answer, or you have any topic ideas for an episode, feel free to reach out on Twitter or Facebook at Raving Geeks. And if you have a TikTok and like fun TikToks, you can find us at Raving Geeks TikTok. And As always, we have been your hosts, Hope Goodearl and
Carter Salley.
we hope that you all stay geeky and have a great weeky. See ya.
See you guys later.